Can you hear it loud? The world is ready. Stand up proud. Your story is power. Your passion's the spark. With Innovate AI and i3, you'll leave.
How many of you use AI today? Raise your hand. All right. How many of you are exploring AI today? Raise your hand. There you go. AI is the thing of the future, and today I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Eric Goodman, who's going to take you through some amazing tools that you're going to want to be paying attention. Everybody open for that? Yes. Awesome. Give it a round of applause for Eric Goodman.
Thank you. So let me ask another question. How many of you have AI agents you're currently using? Okay, awesome. What are some of the things you're using AI agents for? Just put your hands back up. I'll call on a couple of you. Yeah.
Achieving COI compliance for property managers.
Excellent application. Mamie and I are actually speaking at the National Association for Residential Property Managers next week at an event. At any rate, what other applications? AI agents.
We built an agent for engineering, text to CAD.
Awesome. Excellent. Other examples of how you're using AI agents? Yeah.
We're creating custom proposals for funding opportunities.
Okay. Fantastic. Very good. Yeah. Go ahead and share another one, then I'll come back to you.
Reducing schedule slip in construction companies.
Awesome. Okay. What else? There was another hand over here. Yes.
Just calling it for basic like FAQs for like customer support.
Awesome. Very good. So for those of you who don't know what AI agents can do, you'll obviously got some sense that it's happening, right? There's people in this room that have automated things. And the question is like, why hire employees for certain tasks if the task is something that could be automated? And, you know, a lot of manual things that are repetitive or that you can train on can make that possible. And, you know, obviously there are people that are making 8-9 figures plus as a solopreneur with AI agents as their employees, and AI agents doing everything in all the functional areas of their business, from finance, accounting, HR, operations, marketing, everything else, that can really create a self-managed company with the appropriate support so that you can scale to handle all those things. And obviously customer service is low-hanging fruit for just about every one of you in terms of what it can do in the interactions. How many of you would like more leads? Anyone want more leads in their business? Like prime application. The last estimate I saw was about 61% of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. That's probably the biggest challenge. I don't know. What are some of the other challenges you face in your business? What's your number one pain point from a couple? Anyone want to share challenges in your business that you have? Yeah, thank you.
Not enough team members to build agents for the clients.
Okay, not enough team members to build agents for the clients. So that's an interesting application because obviously with what we're seeing and as we get closer to AGI, you know, the ease by which you can do that, but what would it look like to have an agent doing that to build other agents, right? And so ultimately, any other challenges people have? Okay, well, the goal really is, again, to think about that repetitive work that you're doing. What's the one thing that if you could just get off your plate that would make a difference in what you do? And we had several sessions on social media and automating things there yesterday, what that looks like, or tools you can leverage. But imagine having a digital team that never slept, that just created content 24/7, 365 days a week, doesn't call in sick, and things like that. But some other examples, I think about some of them were things: qualifying leads, scheduling meetings, creating content across multiple platforms, handling customer inquiries 24/7, researching prospects and competitors, and we'll share some examples of that. So, you know, an AI assistant is basically taking that task that in the past, or maybe still today, requires some sort of human input and oversight, and building it out into processes that execute those same tasks, right? It's just those activities, and sometimes they do have decision-making capabilities. And the other part of it is you can take one agent that does something, just like you have an employee in an organization. And by way of introduction, Dr. Eric Goodman, as Mamie shared, I'm a recovered academic. I earned my PhD in business at CU Boulder, was a professor, spent over a decade as a business school dean, leading one of the nation's largest colleges of business, and many years in the C-suite and chief academic officer type roles. And in that process, in teaching business, and I can think about teaching intro to business at CU back in the day, where you're talking about all the functional aspects of a business, how often, one department does something and it hands it off to, like engineering, hands something off to operations, and then they hand it off to marketing, and then they hand it off to sales, and so forth. You can have your agents trained to do those very same things with whatever the task is, so that each one can execute it and work with the other agents in a way. And we're witnessing this evolution where we're seeing agents replacing entire departments. Anyone seen the news about some of these companies laying off people recently? Right? Yeah. It's happening. And it's happening fast because there's a realization about what it is possible, right? So why do you want an AI agent? You're founders, a lot of you, right? It's productivity. I mean, that's a big part of it. Scale your capacity. How good is that? Like, how much less is it for an AI agent than it would be paying a salary, or even getting contractors, or finding somebody on Fiverr to do certain things, or having those VAs, even in, some of them are very inexpensive, but, those VAs can call in sick, and there's other issues and time zones and other things like that, and the quality control and all those other things may not be there. So the cost efficiency is huge. The 24/7, it's a major opportunity there. And again, there's just the perfect consistency once they're trained well to do exactly what you want to do flawlessly with that quality, delivering it every single time. And so, there's a lot of different tools out there. What are some of the tools you're using, if you don't mind sharing, for your AI agents? Some of you that had. Okay, N8N. Love N8N. Other ones you're using? Capacity? Cassidy, okay. Which one? Telnex. Okay, excellent. There's a couple of them. Anyone else? Any other examples? So we'll talk about, a lot of the tools are things like, you've got basically things you can do even within OpenAI to create specialized GPTs for different functions. Crew AI is an example of a platform that has multi-agents. There's a lot of them out there, dozens of them, literally. And then, depending on how tech savvy you are, there's other things you can do on the development side that are good for workflows and more advanced type of activities versus some of the single step processes that exist out there. And there's a couple other things. AutoGen, which is a platform backed by Microsoft that allows for some multi-agent conversations and decision making. You have Relevance AI. That's one of my sort of go-tos. I really like Relevance because you can deploy agents into different business workflows very easily. And then Agent GPT, and the list goes on. So, you've got to decide based on what you're doing with an agent, what works best for you. But the ease by which you can create an agent is obviously getting easier and easier every day. And you mentioned N8N. There's, Zapier is one sort of that has done a lot of things with API. I'm going to share Make. Make is one of my favorites, sort of in the same category as N8N in terms of automations. But you've got things where literally in some of these platforms, you've got agents to do thousands of them to do, you name it. Like, they've built them to do it, that you can begin accessing and putting into your business processes. Most people don't even understand what's out there, right? Yeah.
The benefit of N8N over Zapier or Make is you can generate the JSON directly with ChatGPT or Claude and paste it into the workflow.
Yeah, excellent point. And there's differences too. There's another benefit of N8N and Make even over Zapier is the price point. Much more reasonable. So it's again, you're paying for different things, and that's my point earlier, is you've got to decide what you're doing, and if you need to integrate into workflows and have that JSON information, you need to make sure that the tool you are using has it. Thank you for pointing that out. And you do find, at least I do, the business owners or founders and even larger businesses, they don't know what they don't know. And so they're purchasing things without thinking about it holistically and what it needs to integrate with as they build out their tech stack. And so I see a lot of wasted money because had they talked to me or other people, they would understand. They would have asked different questions that would have saved them money and time and headache versus those kludgy legacy systems now that you got this and you got that. And no, those don't play well together. You're going to need to start over, and you've wasted time doing it. Obviously, some of these too have white label solutions that you can actually provide your agents to other people and monetize that. Anyone doing that in here? Where they've set up that type of platform? Okay. But what's that?
I'm sorry, is that intercom right there?
Oh, you're talking the logo?
The logo.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me share a couple things with you because I think it's really helpful to begin understanding what is possible with some of these agents. How many of you have not seen or again, I know some of you raised your hands with agents. Let me ask who does not have an agent right now? Let me just show of hands. Who's not using an agent? Okay, so the majority of you don't. So I think some of this will be helpful for you to begin understanding some of what is possible when it comes to some of the agents that are out there. So what I'm going to do is actually, I think it's this one. Let's see if it's here. Ascent CFO. All right, I'm going to go back here. Hold on one second. And actually, I'm just going to give you an idea of there's so many agents you can create. And these are some that we have available. But a lot of them are in different areas and aspects of a business. So to building apps, to have agents build apps, to have them create documents, funnels, smart websites, editing images, invoices. I'll share probably the social media one would be a good one, and maybe the AI assistant. Book covers, revenue stuff, all sorts of things from bookkeeping, revenue, cash flow analysis, financial stuff, understanding your growth, investor intelligence, partnership revenue stuff, a lot of things in the revenue front. How many of you think revenue is important for your business, right? So we've got a lot of things there that can help a business understand how to optimize your revenue, tax strategies, things like that. Figuring out where the bottleneck is in your business. Like, what does that look like? Operations, competitive analysis, competitive intelligence, crisis response, real-time response navigator, workflow automations, business intelligence, campaign analytics, and the list goes on. You get the idea. Things that give you deeper market intel, customer service feedback, things like that. Tons of things on the marketing front, ad campaigns, even some things, some of you were in the earlier session for the book writing with AI. These are different agents than the custom AI we built with one of the leading publishers in the US that's published 15,000 books. But we have other things to help you build that authority platform, amplify your voice with marketing, creative asset design, and things that may be helpful. There was actually a session yesterday we did for speakers, and a lot of tools for speakers to leverage that can help with their stage presence, their feedback, storytelling, virtual practice, different things, developing the speech, but the list goes on. So let me just jump into one of these, and I think I will, because I think social media is a really good one to be able to look at in terms of what we can be doing. Hold on a second. Let's do this. I'm just going to go in. Actually, let me grab this and see something. I'm going to plug this in here. This will take a little bit of time, but it basically is going to generate some social media posts, information just based on a website. So you can think about the capability to provide input or information, and you can vary it, how much you want to provide it with. There's other things, obviously, that we can do to make sure in what you're creating that it has your voice, that it's trained on your brand and your brand book, your designs, your colors, and all those different things that can be helpful. But to have agents that can actually create different things can be helpful in any aspect of your business. What are some things, as you saw sort of the list of things that I was sharing, what are some things, just examples of things now maybe that as you think about it, like, wow, if I had an agent to do this, I would love that. Anyone? What do you think? What would you like to be able to automate? Yeah.
Like connecting all my systems, my CRM to my social to everything, so it can all work.
Yeah, absolutely. Connecting the CRM, the social, have it auto post, I mean, doing all those things. So this basically just came up with some examples of social media posts. High level, but just very straightforward, really quick and easy. Nothing fancy with that. I want to see one thing. Let's see if we go to... Well, that one isn't a good example of that for that post. So good question. I wouldn't use it for that one, but yeah.
Quick question, does that all have to be digitalized? Data can be structured or unstructured?
It depends on the systems you're using. So that's something you want to look at based on the platform you're utilizing. Okay. So
Have a unstructured set of data and a PDF.
Sometimes with that, there may be, depending on the system and platform, if it has the capability of doing that, you may notice that even some tools like, sometimes if you're even using, not chat, but I know someone was talking, like I was trying to put a PDF into Gemini and it wouldn't like read it, right? Versus putting it in chat, it'll do that. But you can always have an agent structure it before it goes into the next step, if that makes sense. So let me come back to that. But I think there's a lot of different things to do there. I wanted to see, hold on one second. I'm drawing a blank on one thing. But let's go ahead into this, looking at leads. I think this is a fun one because when you look at leads, you can see, let's see if I can get this to show up on the bottom of the screen. Let me just move this around a little bit, close a few windows maybe. Hold on a second. Manipulating this sort of on the fly. All right. Oh, I know. Let me make this a little smaller. That's why. Okay, and then I can overlay this down here with that. Okay, so this is one that is actually something that is for generating leads. And more specifically, when you think about the ability to capture information about like who you'd like to have a lead with. So this is on a Make platform, and there's a bunch of different things, and I'm not going to, that you can do. But I'm basically going to run this, and I already put in a thing. So it's going to, I said, I want to find CEOs in Colorado in certain industries and give me them. I want to get their contact information in these industries. And you can obviously decide who you're targeting. Like you can say, I want these number of employees, this revenue. Did they launch something new? Were they just acquired? Or, like, there's a lot of things that you can do to refine like what type of leads you're working for, of course. And so I'm going to go ahead and just start running it. It's going to take a minute to run. But what we'll see happening is it'll start populating both the organization, and we'll be able to see that. But can you think about like the time you might spend either buying leads or researching, like what are the companies that I want to work with and how do I get in touch with them? And you can figure out sort of what your unique needs are for leads, and then from there, how are you going to use that information? And I'll show, I think, an example of that after this. But think about that. How many of you are buying lists of leads? Anyone doing that? How are you getting your leads? What are you guys doing? No one getting leads? Really? What's that? Zoom info, okay. And so as you're using that, what is that process like?
You have to go in, you have to refine it a lot, you end up having to clean up the data, make sure it matches up with your CRM, clean it so it'll go in. It's a long process.
Long process. Pretty manual?
Is it like their ad platform? What is it? So it's, yeah, their contact info, folks up.
Yeah. So I think when you look at those systems, part of it is making sure that you've got, let's just see something. Hold on a second. There's a lot of manual process with a lot of these systems. And so it's understanding like what that looks like. And ultimately, when you think about the time savings and the manual process, and Zoom Info is a popular one for a lot of companies to use. But even having an agent, like the process that you have to go through to make sure the information you're getting back is actually aligned with what your system needs, the CRM. Some of you might have been at one of the sessions yesterday too, where we were talking about those integrated environments. How many of you have more than one sort of central tool you use for your website, your scheduling, all your social media generation, all your calendar bookings, all your whatever? How many of you have more than one system to do those things? Like, I got this system for that, this system for that, this system. Most of you do. So we talked about opportunities with some of the systems that we have to just have like one system and save yourself. I think the number we shared yesterday was the average business we work with can save like $1,500 a month in what they're spending on all these different legacy systems. So you can see this beginning to populate, and basically it's looking at the organizations, and so it's pulling some of those up. It's got their logo, it's got, as possible, it'll have other information. There's a lot of different things, address and things. I'm not gonna, for the sake of this demonstration, spend a lot of time with it. But then it's also generating a list of other people. Hopefully, I don't know if there are any of you are in the room. If you recognize your name, I apologize. But you've got this going on, and you've got literally a ton of information. But this is working for you, rather than you having to go and scour and research and find all this information. So you can just click. Here's their LinkedIn. Here's their Facebook. Like, it's all at your fingertips. This is their phone. This is their email. Right? You had a question? This is something custom built. Okay. Yeah. We can talk later about that. Yeah. So there's a lot of different systems you can build, and it really just like, what do you want to do? I think you can build anything really. It's just you got to have a vision. Like, I want to be able to do this. There may be some off the shelf. I haven't seen some that do what we do. So yes.
I'm curious, with your organization, are you taking an approach of like, this agent sort of does everything soup to nuts within like this sphere, and this agent does this other sphere, or are you taking more?
Great question. Yeah, so
Look up and I do the other.
Yeah, so what we like to do is, rather than, because we've got dozens and dozens and dozens of agents, like even what I showed you in like revenue, for example, but then you've got your revenue sort of command center, if you will. And then you've got multi-agents underneath that do discrete things. But then also, they can interact with each other. And depending on what you're doing, the workflows will vary in terms of what you do first. And even in marketing, for example, let's take the example of like creating ads or doing other things like that. When you look at how you go about doing that, you first need maybe the creative piece. So maybe there's an agent looking at that, figuring out, and researching like also asked or something like that. Like, what are people searching for on the internet? Understanding what's trending. If they're looking for this, maybe we should create some content around it. So then taking that, creating the content, the copy and things, then that goes into the expert in graphic design or ad strategy to get it to go viral and so forth. But it's really, I think that's the best approach when you've got multiple agents doing different things, because then you can really automate stuff. But there are use cases where it makes sense to just use a single agent as well, and that works fine. So yeah, one other question.
Do you some places that you mentioned that you have to actually be signed in as a member of that website? So do you that information is your own private person? Are you pretending to be yourself when you go in and look for that information?
It depends on how you're getting the information. I mean, obviously, if you have access, there are things we can build to do that, so you're doing it appropriately. You don't want to just take information that you don't have access to, of course.
You can't also, because they require sign-in.
Well, exactly. So, but okay, there are agents, part of the process with agents, and there's other agents actually besides these agents that you can put on an operating system, and the employees are getting smarter, that can do like all the stuff you would do on your desktop and do it for you. So it can go and log in and start typing as if it was you. So there's that capability. So think about how that impacts what this type of agent can do. And I know I've done some fractional work with companies where they've got VA teams and other things, and they're taking screenshots every few seconds and things like that, which is great because like what they're doing or if they're actually working and stuff. But now it's like, well, wait, is it actually them or is it just an agent doing what they do every day? You don't know. I mean, not that it's like rampant, but the technology is there, right? It's pretty crazy. So at any rate, you've got these things, but you can see now, I mean, it's still going. So I'm not going to share all of them, but the ability to just have it generate all these leads, pretty impressive, right? To save that time. So let me share one other thing with you, which would be if we went back to, let's go back here to, let's go into this. So let's say there's an individual that came up and we want to understand based on that individual who they are and maybe do a little bit of research on them, their background, their experience, maybe the company that they work for. This is an AI agent that we can simply go in and say, I'm this person, and it'll know based on me, like I'm the salesperson. So for example, I'm just going to use myself. If I was the salesperson, and actually let me grab something over here real quick. I'm just going to copy that in here. I'm going to be meeting with Mamie in 30 minutes. And this is my LinkedIn, there's her LinkedIn, and this is the company she works for. So what I want to do is basically, rather than, how many of you research a prospect before a meeting? Spend some time. How much time does that take you?
30 minutes.
5 minutes, 30 minutes? 5 minutes would be pretty quick, but I guess it depends on how deep you're going.
Probably too much, 30.
No, I mean, that's pretty reasonable, actually, depending on, I guess it depends on the scope of what you're selling and that client and the importance to your business, right? But it's a process that takes time, undoubtedly, if you really want to understand who that person is and maybe some things that are helpful to know about them. So if you had a tool that could actually go out and look and understand their LinkedIn profile, maybe what did they post recently? If they posted something or not, what are they talking about on their LinkedIn, or maybe if they've commenting on posts or things like that, as an example. Understanding their company, their values, what's new with, what's going on. And there's obviously other things you could grab besides just the company URL. But to pull that together and have basically that information without having to go and read everything to try to make sense of it. How many would you like a tool like that to be able to do that?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What testing have you done on like how kind of well informed and the accuracy of that tool, like, how accurately it actually portrays a person?
Well, it's a really good question. I mean, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you're pointing to sources that may not be updated or relevant or things like that, I mean, you always want to, I like triangulating things, so I'll tend to use more than one thing I'm looking at if I'm doing research on a company or an individual too. So if you've got a LinkedIn, a Facebook page, and other sort of things that can inform you, it's a really helpful thing to understand. But just like AI in general, you want to have human oversight and make sure it makes sense. And I'm not saying you shouldn't look at their website or look at their LinkedIn, but the amount of time that you might spend doing that should be really minimal. And so with that, when you look at this information, I just want to share this with you. So this basically just gave me some information. It's basically a pre-call summary report. So it talks about Mamie Jean. It summarizes some of what she's doing, the business for i3 Empowerment Solutions. Talks about some of the company synthesis, challenges, opportunity. One of Mamie's passion is empowering 21 million leaders worldwide. So, understanding that, scaling that reach, what does that look like? Maintaining innovation. We integrate neuroscience and AI, so we got to stay ahead of the curve. Delivering measurable results, talent acquisition. But some of the things, value propositions, some things about Mamie, her core mission, her sales training background, some potential pain points. It'll even pull that out and share them with you. And then it'll map it to the value proposition based on who I am and what I offer to her. What are some things that might be helpful? How we could help based on what we know of the company. And so beyond my LinkedIn profile, this particular agent already knows within Innovate AI systems, these are the products and services that I offer. So I want you to figure out how and what might serve this particular individual. And we can program it with whatever sort of instructions you want to be able to understand that, but it's already part of the basic RAG system, the knowledge base that it's drawing from, to be able to ascertain that. And then, here's some things, some conversation starters even, Hey, and look, it pulled in. I noticed you'll be speaking at Colorado Startup Week 2025. I'm curious to hear your perspective. So like that was from LinkedIn that it found that information. Or I saw that you're a co-speaker with Dr. Eric Gibbon, who's a client of ours. We've been working with him on X, congratulations on your induction into the Special Olympics Hall of Fame. That was a pretty big deal for Mimi. Key talking points. So potential objections even. Like we already have this in place and it gives you counter responses based on that. Like next steps, offer like recommendations based on that. What are some key takeaways? You get the idea, right? Like helpful to have that type of information that readily. So let me go in real quick and see something. I apologize. I'm just going to unplug this for a second. And I want to make sure I've got this other.
Example with the referencing of the profiles, do you consider that a LinkedIn, or do you consider that an agent versus a customer?
Well, it's not.
My understanding of agents has been more that they are making decisions and taking.
They don't. I mean. Well, in effect, it's going out, and you could have a GPT, and there are GPTs that are agents in effect. So I guess it's a linguistic thing to some degree, but ultimately, the decision, it's taking that information and then compiling it into another output form, which was what you saw with like the summary and the pain points and making sense of the alignment or not between what you're doing. So I think it's really figuring out what you're trying to do and what is most helpful for really what you're doing.
Sure. So in that case, how do you determine whether an agent makes more sense versus doing a custom GPT? Because maybe the custom GPT has a lower lift.
Well, yeah, I think you've got to look at, again, with the use case, what are you striving for? And is it something that you're likely, I think the difference is like when I was talking about multi-agents, if you do a GPT, what happens with that output? Is it going anywhere? It's a lot easier to chain agents and take that output and move it somewhere else. You could obviously take the output from a GPT, but if you're going to build something, it's easier to have an agent that's already in a position to then take that information to another agent and sort of keep it going down the chain, if you will. So I'm looking for one other thing maybe, which was the content stuff. And so I'm trying to see if I can find that real quick to show that potential generation of information. So bear with me a minute. I think the other thing would be, what are some of the challenges as you think about bringing into agents? And maybe, would you mind just maybe facilitating a discussion around, as you think about agents, what are the things, because obviously we want to continue to add value beyond Colorado Startup Week, but I guess just the challenges of thinking about bringing an agent into your organization, but also what are some of the things that would be helpful to you in implementing an agent? Like for those that have done it, great, we'd love to have you share, but do you mind just sort of having a discussion with people while I see if I can find, I think this other agent, I want to find it. This is a pretty cool one.
Is there any comments that you'd like to make? Yes.
Yeah, I think I often think about a lot of the manual tasks that we're doing at work, and a lot of the tasks involve logging into Salesforce, performing some action, logging into another internal database tool that doesn't have API access, performing some action. And I'm just curious if there's any way of like web scraping or logging in as a user and being able to retrieve some of this data, or if maybe the approach is just copying and pasting, having the automation.
Everybody heard that question? That's what I did for many years, because the clients that I work with, they're either acquiring a client or we're looking to provide a proposal that hits home so that the skill sets that we bring to the table matches with the client that we want to work with. And it took me a long time to do that. And so, you know, with Doc, I always tell him, this is the one thing with both Doc and I, when you ask for an appointment, it's a brainstorm. Because I told him, look, Doc, I have a client who is a startup, he's got money, and I want to know how we can take him to the next level because we have an investor that wants to purchase him. And this is what we did. We did exactly what you said. I went out, I scraped everything that I could from the internet so I could understand who that investor was. And then what we did was we took the languaging from that investor, core values, what they were looking for in the future and what they've already attained. And what we were able to do is take that information, pull it together. You saw what he pulled up about me. I now can put a proposal together that sounds like I was sitting next to you and your best friend, because I now know not everything, but I know the key points that I need to sell what we have and get the best price that I could. You know what that client, and the client was like, are you kidding me, Mamie? You're going to do that for me? I said, yeah, for a price. Right? If you're not in this to make money, I need you to understand that there's money to be made. Women, I'm going to talk to you right now. There's a lot of money that you could be making when you have these skill sets that you can add. Men, you have the same opportunity. But my niche is women. Okay? By the time we were done, this gentleman said, are you kidding me? What had happened was within 10 minutes of him presenting that proposal to the investor, I got this text that said, we just hit a home run in 10 minutes. How many of you would love the ability to pull that information in and then use it to really sell what you are capable of doing? There is so much out there that when you use agents and AI to pull it together, the information is powerful. Now, this is the other thing I want you to understand. You need to make sure that you check your facts, because AI has a tendency sometimes to have hallucinations. So it's your responsibility to ethically and morally use the tools that you are using. You following me? You know, I'm a girl from Hawaii. I didn't think I'd be in the World Wide Web. But the power of the information that I was able to get, because Doc said, wait a minute, Mamie, let me do this for you. I said, I want to write a book. They wrote an AI book. I want to write a proposal. This is the beginning of a proposal. So time-wise, how many of you would love to walk in and in 10 minutes close a deal, a multi-million-dollar deal, because you had the right information that merged together? And guess what? We didn't just close a deal, guys. We built a relationship. We built relationships. And we, believe it or not, AI will take us through the door, but you as a human have to hold that deal together. And I can tell you this, I do pride myself in learning and going out there and speaking what I learn, because I know what I get behind, I've already tested. And I know that it works. So if you want to get one day back, a week, use AI, different tools, because it's amazing what we can accomplish. And if we can combine agents to then go out and do their jobs, how many of you are sitting there and having a hickey right now in your butt because you're like, oh my God, it's going to replace me? No. But we can tell you this, if you're not getting into AI one day, you will be replaced. That's the reality of it. And you're hearing it from a woman. And at one point, it's like, how many of us have really said, oh my God, somebody else is going to come along and they're going to take my job? AI can't take your job unless what you're doing can be automated. So go find something else to bring it all together. Is that making sense? Comments, questions?
Introducing
Whoops.
Sage Copilot.
Hang on one second. Sorry about that. I'm just finding a YouTube video. I want to show you something really cool, which is a tool that this speaks a little bit better to like the multi-agent capability. That's what I was thinking about showing you this one. So imagine this. You've got a video either that you created or you've got a YouTube channel. Thank you, Mamie, for that. And you want to take that long form content and create other stuff from it. So I can go in here and we could have our channel where you could pull up stuff, different videos that you can select from. But I just was looking to see, I was just searching. This is like something that someone just produced on new ChatGPT's new feature that they came out with. So I can actually go in here and put that in here, and I want to amplify that video. And so what it's going to do is actually go and get that video, and it is going to create stuff from that video. I can use it on my content. I can look at other people's content to be able to figure out sort of what I want to do. And so in general, as you look at this process, this is pretty cool. So this particular thing is programmed to be able to do multiple things and get content that it can create from this. So for example, and you'll see right now, some of these things are yellow. It means they're processing. Other things are done. Here's the transcript from that video that gets just published about ChatGPT, right? So I can access that. I can say, whoa, let's see, what would it do for a newsletter based on what that person just talked about? And you can have it programmed to different links of newsletters and things like that. The subject link, it'll give you sort of the diagnostics on it. Of course, on any of these, you can customize it. You could say like, oh, if I were to do a podcast based on that, what would it look like? Here's the story content, here's the plan, here's the close. Like, we can create all this derivative stuff in literally, how long was that? It's seconds. It's still working on some things. Social media, ebook. You want to create a blog, a LinkedIn newsletter, a social carousel, even a marketing funnel based on that. Like, okay, what would that look like? Here's some ad copy that you could create that has all these different variants and things like that. So, like, is that crazy or what? Like, you can create things very quickly in all these different areas. And all these different things that you might want for your business, we can customize for you. To say, like, I want to be able to do this in this way. It's the easy button. That's AI in general, is the easy button to be able to do that. But I could go on and say, oh, well, if I did even an ebook, and this is like a short thing, maybe it's a lead magnet with a couple pages. But if I took that content, and what would the page look? What are the sections, and what does that layout look like? It'll generate it. But we can also tie that to another tool we have that can generate the ebook, right? So that's an example, I think a better example of how you can apply some of these agent tools to do different things, because every one of these can be an agent then that goes in and, for example, it may not be appropriate, but like here's a study guide for things that you could do. Here's, I mentioned the blog. Here's a blog. Here's for like LinkedIn, things like that. Here's a LinkedIn article, 1,200 word article that it just wrote based on that video. And it's trained though in my voice to understand how to do that, right? So I think, when we look at the opportunity with AI, it's here. And these agents, there's no question that they're going to play a more important role as we move forward in terms of what's possible. So with that, again, I want to thank you for being here, obviously. I think the main thing is just looking at industry-specific applications, but reminder that you can build your AI empire of agents, right? And 24/7, the productivity, the cost reduction, and it's not scaling by working harder. It's working smarter and cloning your capacity with agents. Some of you might have been here for the session before about the digital twins as well. And really the question is, are you ready to step into this type of an opportunity before your competition does? Because we're talking to them. And so ultimately, you want to seize, there's a window of time, and we're still the early adopters. So Thank you for coming to learn about what AI can do, particularly with the world of twins and agents. And then when you combine them, which I didn't even talk about, you can imagine how powerful that can be, right? So enjoy your day. Again, there's refreshments there. If you hadn't already checked in, we invite you to do so. So thank you all.
No more waiting, the moment is now.